Assalamu alaikum, my name is Salim Siddiqui and you're listening or watching a hotconflict.com video series. I hope you're enjoying it. We've been going through some of the stories of what's been going on this planet we call Earth. Now again, because at the hotconflict.com website, what we try to do is talk about Islam and the religion of the Muslims in a perspective or in a way, and communicate some of the stories in a way that can be easily understood to a Western audience based on modern times and from people who have a Western perspective, so that they can get a proper understanding of Islam and avoid some of the myths and misconceptions. And so we're reminding each other today that this is Eid, the great Eid, and Muslims all over the world had gotten together and pray and bow and worship to the Lord Most High. And also, what? They gathered together in the holy city Mecca to worship the Lord. And so we go back to our story in the creation of the world and the oath between God and Adam. When God was had created Adam, after he created this whole universe and everything that was in it, and the original battles that went on with the other races of jinns or interdimensional beings or smokeless fire entities that we are taught of in Islam, and the human race, and the fundamentals of faith being to believe in the Lord Most High. And we've been continuing the story, and we got to the part where Abraham, who had realized the truth and that there was only one God, and the other false gods of his father had been untrue, and that the stars were not gods, and the shining galaxies out there were not gods, and the sun and the moon was not God. And that has been a concept that has often misguided people, and so that was important for Ibrahim to indicate to us in this fate of the universe that we're in the story that I'm trying to explain to you, in the reality of who you are and why you're here. Ibrahim had gotten to the point where he wanted to be the pillar of belief on the planet Earth, so that from this point on, the idea of worshiping God would never be wiped out, and that there would always be a place of worship for the Lord. And from his children to be the leaders of the war that's going on between good and evil, good being those who believe in the Lord and are searching for the light, and the Lord, of course, being referred to in, of course, all the major religions and myths and understandings when people actually refer to the Lord as the great ultimate light, Nur, as we say in Arabic. And so Ibrahim had gotten to the part in his story where his firstborn had been tested in the sacrifice tribute near Mina, that we call in modern times right now in the Arabian Peninsula, and that Ibrahim had his dream come true, that he was going to establish the religion of faith in believing in the one true Lord on the earth, so that it couldn't be taken away. And so his son had been proved to be a righteous believer, and together they built the house to worship the Lord Most High. This house that they hand built together still stands where it is today, and that's one of the miracles of the story. But like I said, the situation gets a little complicated, because Ibrahim made a pledge to Allah to be that man, and asked Allah to bless him with the greatest of all children. And Allah did, but always in life, good things come with tests. And so Sarah, who was unable to have children at this point, still wanted so badly to serve the Lord and bear a noble, great, believing, pious son. And God, having so much love for Abraham as being such a great man who truly understood the faith, blessed him with a son, and that was Isaac. And so as the story goes, men continue to be born from this family, continuing down the line of Isaac, who understood the war and led their people and their families and reminded them that we are at war, and our Father Adam has told us about this, and the last time we didn't pay attention, the world was destroyed during the time of Noah. Only a few were saved, and now we are the descendants of Abraham who vowed to make sure that we do not lose the war to the dark side, who is being led by Satan, the leader of the other race. Races. We have been blessed with the truth and the light. We are the children from the blood, from the genetic code of Adam that was formed and created by God and breathed life into. What a miracle. And Eve taken from the rib of Adam. So that connection is there. And so the continuous line of warriors of the faith in the war between good and evil in the story that we're telling continue to come from Abraham's family, because he was blessed. He was blessed. And his answer was his prayers were answered. Now, of course, there are many prophets, and like I said, we can't tell the whole story in one day. I mean, if we go through every single ancient society and culture, all the tales and the signs will be there for those of understanding. But clearly a person that I've got to mention is Joseph. Joseph, again, in the super natural story of Jacob seeing dreams and understanding the stars and the moon and the sky and the representation of his sons being the leaders of the great believers of the time, that we are going to form a huge amount of clans of strong believers to spread the faith around the world. Ooh, it was an amazing concept, right? And God was going to bless these children of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, right? The plan was working perfectly, and the families were staying strong, and they were reminding themselves of the family unit, and the blood was passing on, and the light of the truth was withheld within the family and the children. And they had a little problem with Joseph and his brothers, right? I mean, Joseph was so loved by Jacob that they decided to get rid of him. And I'm going to go quickly over the story, but only to mention one fundamental point, because I said we're going to talk about the story today and talk about the strange and the weird and the supernatural and things that you usually don't hear. And I'm trying to give you the truth, and I'm trying to spill it all out. So if you're paying attention and understand the concepts, here they all are. We said we're trying to understand what is the real truth of the one and only God, and how do we differentiate ourselves between all the misdirection and miscommunication from the other side and all the other powers and beliefs. Well, we gotta mention this, right? Because Joseph ends up being the prophet that has this special gift. His father had the special dream that indicated Joseph was going to be special. Why? Joseph is chosen as the next leader of the descendants of Abraham to go what? To remember and be able to have the ability that what? Many of, in now modern day times, we're saying that, oh, in the miscommunication and misdirection, we have all these people in the West who are searching for philosophical, spiritual concepts and going to all kinds of strange mediums and methods to get that, while ignoring the basic truth and misunderstanding between a false prophet and a true prophet. And that's what all the true prophets from God always try to tell you, the difference. Know that you're trying to get the true message from the Lord. And for that, there has to be clear indications of it, and there are signs. And so Joseph was blessed with what? Unlike Eastern cultures where you have Buddhist and Taoist and, Indian concepts, where we know that a lot of these societies that I'm referring to now in the ancient mystic societies, all of their principles and faith principles are based on terribly pagan concepts. I mean, Hinduism has how many gods, and some of the Chinese concepts of all the different gods, and what? Again, what method that Ibrahim was trying to fight against? All the different belief in the stars and astrology and getting information from fortunes and the other side. What's all that from? Again, that's all the misdirection from the other races, right? They are able to see things and know things because of their position up in the galaxy, and sometimes this information gets warped over here. And so all these ancient societies had things. But we also find some actual very spiritual concepts from Eastern religions, right? In many times people talk about these concepts of reincarnation, and obviously it is always so annoying to me when I hear people talk about reincarnation, because it is the most ludicrous concept, thinking that you have many, many past lives. And I'll talk about reincarnation later on in the story, because once you understand the truth, then reincarnation is clearly obviously understood for what is the reason that people experience certain things and what is the truth and the reality. But anyway, we have to talk about Joseph and the ability of the prophets like Abraham and Jacob and so many of the other prophets to understand that God communicated to them in dreams. Now, and sometimes people say, oh, dreams, well, these are just bogus dreams, random thoughts. Well, no, a lot of the Eastern cultures have been trying to indicate to you what? Concepts like what? Astral projection, lucid dreaming, and a lot of these new age touchy-feely things. And sometimes they sound spiritually enlightening, and sometimes they sound bogusy, and sometimes they're mixed with strange occult practices having to do with stars and different things, and so it gets very confusing. But we go back to Joseph, and the reason why I mentioned Joseph is because Joseph had the ability to what? Interpret dreams. Now, why is that fundamentally important? Because if you study astral projection or lucid dreaming, or what people are trying to experience, what are they trying to experience? Well, being a Muslim and understanding that we have clear text directly from the chain to the last prophet Muhammad, and we'll get into that later, we have been given all this information because we have the truth from our Lord, the Most High, and so all the signs are there for you to see. But this concept of being able to understand things, like we said, when we're talking about our war between the humans and the other side, those who increase themselves in spirituality do what? Increase themselves in that inner light that we were talking about. That breath of life that is in our blood, in our DNA, that makes us the greater race that Allah promised all the other races and challenged Satan about. That inner light of faith is what makes us great. And Joseph had what? The ability to do what all of us do and understand it, and that is dream. Now, in all Eastern societies, they say that the soul leaves the body and we are part of the soul. Now, sometimes these concepts get a little bit confusing, so I'm trying to keep it clear here so that you stay focused, right? When I start to talk about strange concepts, I don't want you to get lost. What is it that our race always must believe? La ilaha illallah. I've been trying to tell you from the very beginning. It's a simple concept. The Muslims have been screaming it out loud to you, but you don't get it. There's only one God, right? So we always only worship the one true God, the God who created the whole universe. All the other concepts are bogus and misguidance. There's only one real God, right? The God that you don't see, the God that doesn't show you supernatural powers in the world, the God who sends messengers with books, and they are able to show you things by the power of their Lord, and all of them make that very clear. And so Joseph had the ability to do what? Understand the dreams. And do what some of the other races can do. Now we know that we live, what? In the third dimension, the third density, whatever common scientific term you want to use for today's day and age. But the other races are part of different densities or dimensions where we are not able to view them, and they can cross that line and come in and out of our dimension, and that we know. But we can't see or hear them. They can whisper to us, but we can't whisper back to them, strangely. Yet they are not superior to us as a race. They are not superior to us as a race. And so when you talk about some of these Eastern concepts of people getting enlightened in their astral projection or lucid state, then we have to look to Islam and say, okay, do we have any clear references to this type of thing? Well, yes, we know that we've been telling you the fundamentals of the faith are always the same, right? There's only one God. Oh, God sends prophets and books, and there's angels, and there's jinns, the other races. And we are made of a soul. And on the day of judgment, that soul will be judged. And we will be punished or rewarded based on our faith and our actions. Right? And there is a heaven and there is a hell. So those fundamentals of faith are there. But we also know, based on Quran and text, that when the body, the physical body, slumbers and sleeps, that the soul is able to travel to the skies of the heavens. And if Allah decides to let that spirit return, then the person is brought back to life. Now, many of the ancient societies and people who were able to meditate to a degree, right, where they were able to do what? Get your body to go into a state of slumber, and that your soul is able to travel. Now, once your soul leaves your physical body, it's no longer part of the third dimension, right? And that is why people who are able to do that kind of thing can get their soul to travel and go to different places and see different things and possibly even hear and gain knowledge out of the galaxies. What exactly, we don't know. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? And even Allah, the Lord Most High, we have clear text of this, that when you see good things in your dreams, when your soul has departed, then remember that these are good things that the Lord Most High is trying to communicate to you. Because He is the Lord. We worship what? Allah, la ilaha illallah. There's only one God, the God, Allah. And so Joseph goes to the Egyptian society. And since we're talking about the Egyptians, it becomes incumbent upon me to get into some of the ufology. Because of Egypt, a lot of the UFO concepts have strayed, where there is connections to pyramids, and some of the modern people have understood that alien races, which we call jinn, have come, strange creatures that have strange appearances, the ability to fly. And at the time of Egypt, the great pharaohs had already established themselves as a great empire. How did they do it? Well, Muslims have known for 1,500 years what the ufologists and the Egyptologists are debating right now and arguing over, that the ancient Egyptians were able to work with and did ally with the other races. And if you go back and look at Egyptian hieroglyphs, you can see very clearly that some of the earlier Egyptian kings or pharaohs were reptoid green-skinned jinns, and the markings are on the wall. You can even see some of these strange craft and we would term as UFOs in modern days, but we're going to have to talk about that later on in the series if you continue to have the courage to listen to the story all the way to the completion. But those kinds of images are there, and you can go online and see actual spacecraft depicted, and reptoid green-skinned jinns, and humans and serpent creatures working together. And it has been well known amongst the Muslims for 1,500 or so years that the other races, with their powers to manipulate energy and electricity and possibly even gravity, and God knows what other technology they have amongst their kind, in the fact that they've been around and have a different understanding of the dimensions, and some other factors that we'll get into longer. All these things are there, and so Joseph was able to understand the world of the dreams. And that is an important concept. He brought this information to the land of Egypt, where they had certain strange practices, but they didn't have the truth. They had become a great empire that was huge, but they had done so by making strange alliances with different races. Perhaps they were benevolent of the races and God-fearing? Perhaps not. But by the incessant display in the Egyptian culture of numerous pagan rituals and sacrifices and statues, you'd actually have to be pretty brain dead not to see the change of where, again, we've had this massive turn towards not believing in the one true God. But Joseph comes, and because of his wisdom and knowledge of the truth, is able to understand and communicate with the celestial world in his sleep and interpret what these images are that people get from the skies, given to him by the Lord. He is able to advise the king of future events. Future events, very important, because when we later on talk about modern day understanding of jinn or alien technology and modern day prophets communicating with the jinn and talking about time in the future, it'll be very important to see that this idea that believers can become pure of heart and gain knowledge about the unseen world through their dreams, if they're pure of faith, is there as a clear example from Joseph. And so a lot of the Eastern philosophies, like we said, the truth and falsehood gets mixed up in the method of misinformation, right? That's the system. It's always misinformation. Satan and his minions, whether they are men or any of the other races, those who are working on the side of evil, are always about what? Confusing the majority of mankind. Whereas all of the prophets were always about what? Giving the pure knowledge, wanting nothing in return. Because when you give pure knowledge and pure truth, it increases the light of others and yourself, and thereby fuels the power of the faith and the ability of all believers. But man, it's a struggle. It's a struggle of mankind. It's the struggle of our race. And so Joseph had this ability, and so he was given this great status. And the brothers of Joseph all were able to establish themselves in one of the greatest empires as the believing brothers in a disbelieving empire. And so what happened? The situation got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where anybody who believed in the Lord Most High was treated as the lowest of the low. And the children of Jacob and the tribes were slaves to the pharaohs and the people who were working with the alien races. Now, they had built huge structures and temples and pyramids, and today the knowledge is clearly there that they were able to understand knowledge from the skies and of the alien races, and able to manipulate the position and have technology that was able to move boulders and things that were phenomenal, that mankind without the power of alien technology would not be able to do. And the fact that people don't recognize that Muslims have been saying that these things were done by jinns is such a ludicrous thing. But anyway, Muslims have been trying to explain this to you, that jinns or the other interdimensional beings or the alien races, however you want to term them, have been working with the Egyptians, and that's how we have the pyramid structures that we have there. And they're specifically based on constellations in the skies, because one of the things that the aliens always do is trick mankind into believing some of the powers of the stars. As we saw, Ibrahim in his example was trying to teach us not to do that. But we have the story of Joseph and him telling the Pharaoh of the dreams and the sons of Jacob and the tribes of Israel. What a noble bloodline, all connected back through the lineage of Jacob and Isaac and Abraham, directly on the faith. But like I said, the story gets bad. And as time progresses, somehow things shift, and the power of the pagans and the side of disbelief in the one true Lord gets to be so severe that anybody who believes in the one true Lord is turned into a slave. And we find the Jews, as we call them today, being kept in bondage. until a point where God decides, yes, it's time to send another messenger with the truth. And as the story always goes, how does God do it every time? How does God do it every time? Oh, God works so mysterious, and He's the Lord Most High, the creator of the heavens and the earth. And so the stories are there, and I don't know why nobody pays attention, and I'm trying to give it to you and show you every time how obviously funky the reality is of being so blatantly true. So, the situations of the true believers at this time called the children of Israel are so royally fracked once again, but unlike past times. And here is a tribute to my brothers and sisters who call themselves the descendants of Isaac, or the tribes of Israel. Unlike other times, things got so messed up that we're dealing with a society that we openly admit in our modern age that was using all kinds of supernatural technology and working with the other races and building great pyramid structures and having amazing feats of technology and what we call in our ancient books as magic and supernatural abilities. Why? Because they were working with the other races. And all that can be checked and verified. I'm just trying to give you the truth, as weird as funky as it sounds. Strangely, as this all happens, again, the people of evil know the signs of the truth, and they always know it, and it's part of the misinformation because the armies of Satan are always telling people what to do and what to watch out for. And so, the leaders of disbelief did what? Try again to kill the sons of Adam. Right? Try to kill the sons of Adam. Any of the believers in God must be killed again. All their males. Why males again? Because the line of Adam is known that it is by the men to be the leadership, and by them and their bloodline to progress. And so the order comes to kill all the males. And in this strange thing, as the fundamentals of faith, what is it that we believe when everybody tells you something's not true? What is it that we believe? What is it that we believe? I've been telling it to you from the beginning. La ilaha illallah. There's only one God. There's only one God. And so God, who has ordered us to believe in no one other than Him, has told us there are angels who do the acts of the Lord Most High, and they are made of light. There are other races made of energy, smokeless fire. Some are believing, some are disbelieving. Satan is to you an avowed enemy, and he will lie to you. And that's the story from Adam. Go back to the beginning of this series and see what your father Adam learned at the beginning of the war. That Satan would lie about God. How evil is that? And so in this strange situation, God inspires the mother of a baby born from the descendants of Joseph and his brothers, of Jacob, of Isaac, the noble son of Sarah, out of the great father of the faith in the Lord, Abraham. God orders this noble woman to take her newborn son and put him in the Nile River. And where does Moses end up? In the castles of the kings. Moses ends up being picked up by the sister of the Pharaoh. Where does God send his most noble believer and the one who he's going to choose to be his messenger of the true faith? He sends him into the heart of darkness to be given the best of everything. Ah, man, the story. Do you understand the story? Are you paying attention? Okay, we're going to rush through the story a little bit because we can talk about Aaron and Moses and his tongue and what happened to him and how these things are all important, but we've got to go further on. When Moses gets to the point where he understands that he's been lied to And he has been deceived. He was living here in darkness, living it up in the best of situations, while thinking he was in the greatest of civilizations. Royalty of royals. But surrounded by false gods. And he saw his own people being treated like slaves. And as the situation happened and the story gets long, and so we'll rush through it, Moses is forced to flee. And he goes through the desert and finds descendants of other people, and finds Joshua and the tribe of Midian. He spends time with descendants of some of the other prophets. Again, he finds, not Joshua. Anyway, Moses goes, and to make the long story short, again, from the children of the tribes of Israel, Moses wants to know the truth, right? I mean, Moses wants to know the truth. Moses, again, I said, we always tell you the truth. What does it mean to say Islam? Islam means that you're submitting that there's only one God. And a Muslim is somebody who says, I got it. I figured out what's going on in the story, and I'm submitting that there's only one God. I'm part of the human race, the sons of Adam, and God put us here for a reason. Let me stop, inshallah. Take a break, because Moses is just too important to ignore. Let me take a break.